Hello, Canton. My name's Anne-Marie Graham-Hudak, your Canton Township Supervisor. Welcome to Good Day Canton. Today we have Stephen Snyderman, who is a trustee. By the way, he just celebrated 10 years as a trustee. And we also have Director Jade Smith, Director of Municipal Services. So today we're going to talk about sidewalk gaps and trails. The board has had it as one of its goals for a while, and we're going to talk about the status and let you know where we are with that. Recently, we just passed a sidewalk gap program, probably about in August, wasn't it? August time frame?
I think it was August, yes.
Okay. So we're going to learn a little bit about that. So Jay, why don't you talk about that sidewalk gap trail and what you found when you did the study?
Sure. So when the board made it a directive to the township, we went to work and through a lot of research with our engineering department and our planning department and MSD administration, and then we actually had some interns that helped us out. We actually identified over 50 miles of gaps throughout, and that's just sidewalk gaps. So goat trails, areas where there is no sidewalk between this house or the next house. So we identified 50 miles of those throughout the township. And if we were to construct all those today, it would come at a cost of about $30 million.
Wow.
And
how long do you think it'll take to do all of that?
Years. It depends on the funding mechanisms and how much funding we have for that, but there's also the limitations of just how much you can get done in a season. There's a lot of factors that go into it too, like acquiring right of way, do we already own the property? So there's a lot of factors, but it would probably take us, I'm going to say 15 years to probably accomplish all of it. But there's some low-hanging fruit that we're looking at. So we'll be making some pretty big advancements in the next couple of years for sure.
So what is some of that low-hanging fruit that we're looking at?
Well, our first priority is actually any of the gaps that are around the schools. So we've identified over 2.5 miles that are just around the schools within a quarter of a mile of every school, both public and private schools within the township. So looking at those are I wouldn't really call those low-hanging fruit, but those are our biggest priority. And then what we're doing is we're looking within that priority, where is that low-hanging fruit where we have the right-of-way access, where we actually can go ahead and just design it and get the sidewalk put in a quick manner.
And some of the harder ones is the drains too.
Oh, yeah, that's true. You mentioned that I've been on the board for 10 years, and when I joined 10 years ago, I think, if I remember correctly, we only had about $50,000 a year that we could apply to gaps, and it costs so much per cubic foot or linear foot to roll out a sidewalk that that didn't go very far. And the same for repairs. We had just started the repair program for our sidewalks. And I think, Jade, tell me if I'm wrong, but there's 10 zones in our community, or is it?
Yes, there's 10 zones currently, and because of the growth of the township, we're looking at, kind of reallocating those zones and maybe adding more.
Yeah, more and more sidewalks are being built when new developments come in, and we hardly had enough money just every year to repair one of those zones, which is very important to make sure we have smooth sidewalks in our community.
Right. And some of the, like you said, when developers come in, we're trying to push it. A sidewalk goes around the development now. Just kind of connect everything like pieces.
Yep. That's very important. As someone who walks our community, and like many people who live here, many of our residents, and I also bike ride, it's always frustrating when you're on a really nice sidewalk that pretty much goes the whole stretch a mile, but there's 1 or 2 or 3 houses where there's no sidewalk, and you have to find your way out to the road. And it's also dangerous, so I think it's important that we fill those sidewalk gaps.
Right, and the drains lend a problem also with that, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, because then you have to get involved with the state. You have to get an Eagle permit in order to put any sort of walkway through there. So there's some different alternatives, not just your traditional concrete sidewalk that we'll be looking at to cross some of those drains. But yeah, so really the focus just kind of got kicked off this year, and I think you'll start seeing annual progress every year. And thanks to the Board of Trustees, they've allocated some significant dollars to kickstart the program over the course of the next few years. So that's huge, and it's unfortunate, but that's what it takes to kick anything off like that, is the funding.
Right, and our state senator Dana Plahaggy was able to get $750,000 towards that effort also.
Right.
Yeah, combine that with now $500,000 a year that we've been able to allocate, that'll get the program started, jump-started, and we'll see where we go from there.
Yep.
Now we just have to deal with the resource issues and construction issues, because that is a big issue for us right now also.
Yeah, we're seeing the cost of concrete go through the roof right now, like with everything else that we're dealing with. But but hopefully we can still make a dent and still make progress.
Good.
Yeah, it may delay things a little bit, but we won't take our eye off the target of completing a lot of those sidewalk gaps around the community.
That's good. And also, even just getting contractors, though, also,
Right.
we've seen a lot of issues with that.
Yep. I think, part of what we'll do too, and part of the emphasis that we've been really concentrating on since this has been a major initiative, is working with our planning department and making sure that when we have new development that comes in, that we address any of those gaps surrounding the entire development. Not just the property that's right in front of them that they own, but like, what do we need to do to make sure that's contiguous going east and west or north and south of there too? So really working with those developers, because maybe they can bring something to the table as well
That makes sense.
as a community benefit or something like that.
Now, Stephen, when you were on the board, is that when they started the ITC trails, or was it just before you started?
It was being built when I joined the board.
Okay.
It wasn't completed yet. We did a grand opening ribbon cutting back then. And yeah, we partnered with ITC and the Rouge River folks and created the walking and biking trails throughout the community. So hopefully people have found those. ITC was doing some work on their corridors where they have the large power towers, electrical towers. And so we were able to partner with them while they were doing that work to create a trail once they completed that work over the land. And I think they've done great. I mean, people have found them and use them for biking and also walking. I see a lot of people out there when I'm out there. And it connects into the I-275 trail, the paved trail that goes from community to community. I've often taken that up to Hines Drive and circled back down to Canton. So.
Where do you go into Hines Drive from there?
The 275 trail connects into the Hines Park. It goes right into it. So there's a little exit off of the 275 into Hines Park. So it allows you to, go outside the community and then easily come back to our community. And we've learned a lot, I think, about how to maintain those trails. Director Smith and I were out there on bikes earlier this year, just looking around, looking at some issues, which some have been repaired already. And we've learned what types of gravel work best for biking and put some programs in place to make sure that that they stay usable well into the future.
Right. Because, yeah, it's when you go on the trails, the ITC trails, if you use the bigger rocks, it's easier to kind of slip your tires.
Right.
So you're using
Right.
kind of the smaller ones, the medium ones. Okay. And that's what you found, some of those areas when you were riding your bike.
Yeah.
So we're starting to make that change with the type of aggregate that we're putting down, for sure.
And we've talked about maybe starting up a sort of, maybe not a formal committee, but just a mechanism for input from people who use the trails and sidewalks in our community. We'll see how that goes. We'll continue to talk about it and maybe do something on social media or something like that, just to collect information for the people who really use these trails. In addition, I personally would like to see us at some point, funding's always an issue, continue the ITC trail southward into Belleville and connect to the Washtenaw border-to-border trail that can take you across Washtenaw, definitely take you into Ann Arbor easily. And I know combining the ITC along with developments that are being built down in southwest Canton, that we possibly could make that connection in the next few years. So
Where does that Washtenaw Trail pick up?
in Belleville.
In Belleville. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
down in Belleville. So there's kind of a highway in between us and them, 94, that we'll have to contend with. There is, I believe, some kind of bridge, walking bridge that goes over the highway actually over there. And if we can get to that bridge, then we can Canton can say it has access to the Washtenaw border-to-border trail. And I think that would be great. People would love that.
It'd be phenomenal.
That makes, now, from what I understand, also Canton was the first community that worked with ITC for those trails. And now when you go to meetings or conferences, they're there trying to get other communities to do it.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, it's unused land because what they're using is up in the air, so we might as well use what's on the ground. And so we actually, Dave Norwood, my deputy, and myself are putting together a meeting with ITC with a grand plan to actually take it from border to border within Canton and say, what do we need to do to make sure that when we're ready for this and we have the funding that we can implement it.
Okay.
In addition, so the ITC trail goes south towards I-94, and we haven't gone all the way south yet, so it would be great if we could do that. And then it goes west, and so I think the goal is eventually to connect that trail to Cherry Hill Village, so people can bike out there easily or walk.
Yes, right now we only go basically to we cross Sheldon, but we don't continue it west into Cherry Hill Village.
Right.
Okay.
And we have a draft plan of what that would look like to go to the west and then connect the village in with all of the subdivisions out there as well, along with the ITC.
Okay.
And then Preservation Park and all of that good stuff.
I wonder if we should look at even taking it into just past Cherry Hill and going into Superior Township into Ann Arbor that way.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's an option.
I don't know what Superior Township's plans are. It would be good to figure that out and sit with them. I don't know that the border-to-border trail goes through their area, but there are some private paved trails along Getty's Road that have been put in by the developers. So it starts a little west, not right at our border, a little west into Superior, I think. And then it goes on the south side of Getty's Road, and you can bike along there. And it makes it kind of easy to get on bike into Depot Town area of Ypsilanti, which has some fun restaurants and things to do. And it's a reasonable bike ride. It's probably about a 10-mile bike ride if you're on bike. So yeah, it's just I personally think that the generations that follow ours are really interested in being able to have transportation options, not just have an automobile all the time. And so providing bike lanes, if we can, on our already crowded roads, which is difficult, but sidewalks and trails as other options for that, I think they will appreciate that.
No, I agree. Then, of course, across 275, we have 3 bridges in Canton. So I know we've been talking to MDOT about that because you have the crossings down at Palmer Road and then Cherry Hill and then up by Joy. So we have to figure out how to get some bike paths or trails safely across those bridges also.
Yep, and we've actually taken the Sidewalk Gap program that has a section in there about that, and we've submitted it to MDOT for their review, and hopefully we work with them on getting one of those accomplished.
That's great. Do you ever ride it that way, Stephen, on your bike?
Yeah, well, under Ford Road, which does have sidewalks and sort of fences that keep you from the traffic, which is good. The other ones, you're usually on the road or on the shoulder going across, so it would be great if we could have real sidewalks going across there. I know the people in Eastern Canton would appreciate being able to come to the center of town, like Heritage Park and Cherry Hill Village, and even perhaps up to Ford Road, which I do ride along the sidewalks of Ford Road too, and to get to restaurants and shops and things like that. So yeah, on the eastern side, I think we're also making plans to connect into Westland on some of the trails as well there. I'm not sure they're all the way to us yet, but we're getting close to being at our border with them in terms of trails. So that'll be great to make us a connected community.
Right, and Holiday Park is another way too, because Holiday Park goes from northeastern Canton into Holiday Park, then into Westland, and into Hines Drive.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But there's, I think, 7 bridges there that are in disrepair right now.
Yeah.
And Nature Preserve up there, I believe, too, right? Yeah.
Have you driven there on your bike?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's been around.
I know.
Been around. Take Coppernick under 275 to get on the trail. But sometimes those gaps will get you, and you kind of feel, like it gets to be a little dangerous when you get out there on the shoulders. So it's going to be great. The more we can do, the better.
Yes, I know that's been one of your pushes for all these years. So what do we do then in terms of encouraging people to let us use their land for right-of-ways, on some of these gap areas? That's a big thing too. Yeah,
so one of the things that we actually are talking about is actually doing a call to everybody and some sort of announcement that if you have a gap in front of your home, to please let us know. We can put it in the focus. We're going to put something on the website. There's some federal regulations about acquiring right-of-way with appraised values and things like that we have to be very careful with if we're using right-of-ways to put public infrastructure in. So we're being a little careful with that, but we're hoping to work with a broker that'll know that law a little bit better, and then we can pursue that and put that call out to people to say, hey, yeah, we know, if you want a sidewalk in front of your house and you're willing to give us the right-of-way, please contact us. So I think it's in the language in how we approach it. So I'm sure we can accomplish it. But you brought up MDOT. I want to touch on this too. MDOT's actually doing some improvements, and I know haven't seen the final drawings, but they're looking at the 275 Michigan Avenue intersection too, and actually making that a little bit safer.
Exactly.
Not sure what that's going to look like at the end of the day. I think they're still in the development stage, but they know that's a concern. That's an area.
It is.
So be on the lookout for some improvements there.
That's a good idea. That's because if you cross Michigan Avenue, you have to go under, head a little bit north and then go under the viaduct. And MDOT, I found a statistic online. They were basically saying if something takes 50% more time to do, people normally don't do it. They're just going to run across the street.
Yep.
And we want to make that a safe area also. That's an important part.
Yeah, even that crossing on the east side of 275 at Michigan Avenue, it's a double crosswalk. And so if you're not careful, you hit the button and you think that it's a white light, crossing light for you to cross, or a green light for you to cross all the way across, but you don't realize you have to hit the button again at the island halfway, and it could be quite confusing for some people and dangerous too.
Right.
So
that's one of the areas they're looking at, that particular spot.
Yeah, it seems like even at the hot crossings, people get a little bit confused. They just have to remember red means stop.
Yeah.
Even if it's blinking, you have to stop.
Yeah.
People sometimes, it's just flashing red, I'll go through, but no. Right. So some of the hot crossings, they go from flashing yellow, I think, to flashing red and then solid red.
Yes.
And then they come back to flashing red.
Yeah.
So people have to still stay, stationary.
Yep.
Yeah. And bikers, make sure you watch the cars stop.
Yes.
Yeah. Don't assume they're going to stop.
Right.
They are kind of unique crosswalks. So.
Right. Make eye contact.
Yeah. Always important.
Mm-hmm. Make sure someone's not on their phone. Mm-hmm. Well, do you gentlemen have anything else to say about trails or sidewalk gaps?
I encourage people to look for our trails. The map is on the website, I believe, and we have some really great trails that go through some beautiful woods in our community, and I encourage people to get out there and explore them. Even in the winter, hiking in the winter can be nice too. Just dress warmly and be careful. So.
Like Trustee Steineman said, please get out there and enjoy them. And if anyone has any concerns, questions, or suggestions, please let us know. So we always are looking to ways to enhance the trails.
And also, if you see a hole in the trail or something.
Oh, absolutely, 100%.
You can report that.
Please report that.
Yeah.
That's the great thing about trails, is that they don't have to follow a specific design. If we find a place that's in need, we can work with property owners and create a very unique environment for people to enjoy the trail.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And of course, if you see Steven on the road, make sure you... So what color is your bike?
It's black.
How about your helmet?
It's also black.
Okay, there you go. So
and I have a black overshirt with bright blue on it. So
and reflectors everywhere, right?
But lights and reflectors. Yeah.
And if you see somebody that has none of that's with him, that would be
Jade.
So don't hit Jade.
I'm usually looking in my mirror to see who's coming up behind me.
That's a good idea. Yeah. You need mirrors too.
Clearly.
we'll get them outfitted.
Okay, good. Well, we'll have to do that again. I don't know, maybe before the...
We'll expand it.
We're going to do it in the spring.
Okay, good.
We'll take footage this time.
Yeah.
Okay, yes, on a GoPro. That would be fun. That'd be fun. So we'll have to look forward to more bicycle trails and sidewalk, a lot of fun, a lot of bike riding and walking. I know when I went on the Rouge River Trail the other day, there were bikers and hikers. And
when the weather gets warm, they're out there. And, people in cities, you think about it, when you go walk 10, 20 blocks, you pretty much walked a mile. And Ford Road is just 2.5 miles in itself. And it would be great at some point if Ford Road could be considered a more walkable, bikeable area where you can go and with your family and go out to dinner or go shopping and be safe doing it. So we're trying to make that more accessible.
Right. Hopefully that'll happen someday soon. Well, thank you very much for joining us, Stephen. And Jade, thank you for your insight, and thanks for helping us get there.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you.
And congratulations on your 10 years ago.
Thank you. Very exciting.
Well, thank you very much for joining us for this version of Good Day Canton. Have a good day. And if you have any questions, you can give these gentlemen a call. Thank you.
This program was produced by Canton Community Productions.